Welcome to Living a Graceful Life. I'm Denise Medved, your host, and I'm also the creator and founder of the Ageless Grace Brain Health Program, worldwide in 50 states and 30 other countries. I'm here to remind you that it's never too late to begin making choices to create the life that you want to live. We've talked about the body, the physical body, and how that is part of the choices we're in control of. That physical body also includes the brain, and tonight we're going to be talking about better brain, better life. We also have talked that the emotional body and the spirit or spiritual body also are part of our decision-making process. What can give us a more graceful life and allow us to have more pleasure, more comfort, more ease, because that is really what a more graceful life is about. Moving through life gracefully with elegance of movement, and not necessarily being a dancer or a ballerina, but moving through the dance of life with the greatest of ease. So better brain, better life. How can that equate? Let me tell you. The brain is actually proven now by neuroscientists to control all the movement of the body. Every move we make, every breath we take. So yes, it can do other things. It can plan a retirement. It can create a mural or a painting. It can create a game. But guess what? Its primary purpose, the main reason it's in our body, is to control the movement of the body. So that also means that movement affects the brain, right? So movement has everything to do with the 5 primary functions of the brain. And what it does when we move in certain ways that cause our brain and body to engage and have a dialogue with each other is it stimulates those 5 functions, and it stimulates a process that neuroscientists call neuroplasticity. Big, long word. It simply means that we, you and me, have the ability to change the form and function of our brain and central nervous system, regardless of our age, and also regardless of what diagnosis we might have or what DNA we might have. We changes in our brain and central nervous system because our brain is plastic, so to speak. Now, they used to think that we couldn't change our brain past our late teens to early 20s, that was the brain we got and we were stuck with it. But now, the latest research in over a decade is showing that we can change our brain. And the reason they used to think that that was impossible was because most of us learned from the time we were born until our late teens or early 20s, new things constantly through our physical bodies. From the earliest stage, we learned to walk. We learned to maybe hop or skip or jump. We might have learned to do a game on our own, like running or skipping or jumping rope or throwing a frisbee. We might have learned to do a game with a friend where we toss a ball back and forth, or with a team where several of us are playing a game and we're planning and figuring what to do next. We may have learned something complex like driving or riding a bicycle. All of those things were called playing, but in fact, they were changing our brain and developing it into the brain that we have. But we can continue to do that. Scientists now know. We have to simply do something new that we don't know how to do physically already, or we have to take something we know how to do and do it in a different way. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Well, it actually is very simple. And what does that have to do with a graceful life? Well, since the brain is in charge of all of our movements, our breathing, our emotions, and even our mind has to use the brain to process its awareness, its consciousness, its power to make decisions and form beliefs. So the brain is very important to the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, and the spirit, or the spiritual body. So when we keep that brain healthy, when we feed it, when we give it fuel, when we light it up, we're lighting up the lives and allowing ourselves to have more fun, more pleasure, more joy, and we're allowing ourselves to have a better life. And it has nothing to do with where you live in the world, what your income is, what your career is, and more importantly, what your age is. You can change your brain at any age. So how do we do that? Is it complicated? Is it challenging? Do we have to study? No, it's actually very, very simple. When we make certain movements that engage the brain, meaning the brain has to think about it, the brain has to figure out how to do it, then we're stimulating those 5 primary functions of the brain that I mentioned earlier. And what are those? Well, they could be complicated, but we've simplified it by making an acronym and explaining what those 5 functions are. The first one is an S, and it stands for strategic planning. Now, yes, you can strategically plan your retirement, for example. You can strategically plan how you're going to set aside a certain amount of money for your children to go to college or your grandchildren. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how the brain constantly and continuously strategically plans how our body's going to get from point A to B to C. Meaning, if I wanted to do something simple like stand up, just in that simple process, I had to push my feet down, scoot a little forward, lean a little forward, push down on my hands, lift up on my head, and I'm not even fully standing yet. So strategic planning, as far as the body is concerned, is getting from one step to the next. Next is an M, and it stands for memory and recall. And I know that a lot of you are really in memory, regardless of your age. I have 20-somethings who say to me, I can never remember where my keys are. Do you think I'm getting cognitive decline? No, that's actually a normal process of aging. And the older we get, there are lots of things that happen to the brain because the brain is an organ in the body. So just like all of our parts age, our brain ages as well. So there's normal aging, but there's also abnormal aging. So memory and recall, again, is a physical experience, whether you realize it or not. Meaning everything that you remember, everything that you're attempting to recall, everything that you know about was actually some physical experience. Where were you sitting in the orchestra when they played the name of that song you're trying to remember? Where were you standing when your friend and you were talking about that particular experience or memory that you had together? Where were you sitting in school when you learned about that fact that you're attempting to recall? All memory is actually a physical experience. Now, recall is slightly different because it also includes things that we actually did not experience ourselves. It's what we observed and what we recall about what we observed. Now, what I love to use is the trombone as an example. I've never held a trombone. I've never played a trombone. I know practically nothing about a trombone, but what little I do know is that a trombone is something you blow into and that it has a slide that goes back and forth. So if someone were to say to me, pretend to play the trombone, I would be recalling what I know about playing the trombone because I saw it in an orchestra or a band or somewhere in a nightclub. So that's memory and recall. Next is A, analytical thinking. And analytical thinking means understanding all the parts or components of a physical activity. What are the steps, the processes? So a good example might be baseball or basketball. In basketball, I would think right away, well, okay, I'm going to play basketball. I would start using my memory and recall, and I would start thinking, well, what are the things that I might do in basketball? Well, I might dribble the ball, or I might shoot a ball into the basket or attempt to, or I might run down the court while I'm dribbling the ball or pass it off to someone. I might guard someone and try to keep them from making a basket. using my analytical thinking to understand all the parts and physical activities of that thing called basketball. So the next one is a C, and it stands for creativity and imagination. And I know some of you think, oh, I'm not very creative. I'm not a creative person. I'm more of an analytical person. Well, guess what? We're all creative. Every single one of us in some way or another. Because creativity, as far as the body goes, literally has to do with doing something a little differently than you've ever done it before, or trying something new, or experimenting with a movement or something that you do. For example, it's actually creative to brush your teeth with the other hand, and it causes your brain to say, whoa, what's that? That's not how we usually do it. Let me fire some neurons or brain cells and figure out how to make this more effective for my person, right? So trying something new or doing something you already know how to do differently stimulates that neuroplasticity, and it's a form of creativity. Here's another part of creativity: imagination. Well, right in the word imagination is the word image. And that's what you're seeing in your mind's eye, inside your brain. You're thinking, I see myself shooting a basket, or riding a bicycle, or throwing a ball, or swimming, or whatever it is you're imagining that you're about to do, you're about to try, you're going to experiment with. You see an image first in your mind of yourself doing that thing. We do it all the time. You just don't necessarily realize that you do. And here's the interesting thing. Dr. Norman Doidge, who wrote the book, The Brain That Changes Itself, said in that book that imagination and physical action or activity are not as different as they might seem from a neurological point of view. Because in fact, when you take an MRI of someone who's imagining something versus someone who's doing something, they light up almost all the same parts of the brain. So when you imagine you're doing something and act it out at the same time, you're getting sort of a double benefit of the imagination and the action, both happening at the same time and stimulating your brain. Now we come to K. The letter K stands for kinesthetic movement, and that literally means the way you learned and influenced and changed and developed your brain from the day you were born. We learned kinesthetically, which means through the body first. I bet not one person watching this tonight took a course on how to walk when you were a toddler. You watched your parents or your siblings or whatever, and you said, oh, I would like to try that. And you pulled yourself up and you fell and you stumbled, but you were learning through your body. But as you began the physical activity to learn through your body, your brain lit up and said, oh, look, we're doing something new. I'm going to fire some neurons, some brain cells, and we're going to figure out how to make this work. And then when you repeated that activity more than once, maybe even more than 100 times, you were creating a neural pathway, which is basically an information highway along which information and dialogue travels between the brain and the body parts so that they know what to do. They're communicating with each other. So when you learn to ride a bicycle, for example, you probably, like I, were terrible at first, and you probably fell off and you skinned your knees. But when you tried it again, you were a little better. And when you tried it again, you went a little further. And when you tried it again, you were starting to do pretty well. And then one day, you could pop a wheelie, or you could skid in sideways, because now a lot of what you were doing was becoming almost automatic because you had deepened the groove of that neural pathway by practicing over and over and over again. So that's kinesthetic learning, learning through the body first. And anytime we start something new, we're really learning through the body first. We might even have an instructor or a friend who's showing us how to do it, but since we don't know how to do it yet, we're learning. So, what do we have for our acronym? SMACK. Strategic planning, memory and recall, analytical thinking, creativity and imagination, and kinesthetic learning. Smack. And that is the sound of a neuron or brain. It makes a crackling, popping, tapping smacking sound when it fires. And that's what we want to do right up until the day we die healthy. That's what our goal is, to die healthy and to die having done everything we wanted to do and not feeling limited. I always like to say, why would you want to improve your brain health? Well, we all know someone, if not many people, who have a form of cognitive decline or dementia or Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and that is not what we want for ourselves or anyone that we love, right? So that's a good why, to keep your brain healthy, doing simple things that you can do. And I'm going to show you a couple little fun tools that we can use that are so simple that can help you fire neurons and activate those 5 primary functions of the brain. Now, many of you may think like, oh, but I do crossword puzzles and I play bridge and I read books and I take courses. My brain is going to stay healthy forever. I have bad news and good news. First, the bad news. The bad news is that they have proven definitively, many research institutions, universities, and hospitals, that word games, puzzles, learning just with the brain do not delay cognitive decline. And here's why. Those 5 functions I just told you about have to all be activated, not just 1 or 2 of them, but all of them, ideally on a daily basis, but certainly several times a week, in order to have a healthy brain. So I like to compare that to brushing your teeth, meaning if you only brushed your front teeth for months and months and months, or years and years and years, you know what would happen to the teeth on the sides and in the back. You would have tooth decay. So if you only work 1 or 2 functions, not parts, because now we know that these functions are done by several different parts of the brain, but you would have only stimulated 1 or 2 functions, and that's not going to keep the entire brain healthy. It needs to be something that physically engages your brain and body at the same time in an ideal world. So what is that? Well, first of all, one of the ways to engage your brain is simply to do something, because we normally do almost everything we do standing or walking or running or moving. So if you say, I'm going to pretend to dribble the basketball like I did before, well, my brain immediately says, well, how do I do that? I don't have a basketball, I'm not running down the court, I'm not on a basketball court. So it figures out how to do that seated instead of standing. And that's one of the reasons these tools I'm going to show you later are actually done in a seated position. It has nothing to do with, are you older, are you infirm, are you frail, do you have poor balance, are you in a walker or a wheelchair? Has nothing to do with any of that, because everyone can do this because it's in a seated position when we attempt to stimulate the brain. Remember, that's our goal. Yes, it will be physical and will stimulate the body, but that's our goal. So let me talk a little more about the brain. I've already told you it's an organ, right, in the body. So that organ requires at least 3 main things to be alive. Now, I'm not talking about to be sharp, to be attentive, to be focused, to move really quickly, to be able to respond, react, and recover to anything that is happening in your life. I'm talking about keeping your brain alive. First of all, it needs water or hydration. And I know that some of you may be rolling your eyes and saying, oh, I don't like the taste of water. I don't like to, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I don't like to go to the bathroom 10 times a day because I've been drinking lots of water. Well, first of all, that's a good thing. It means you're eliminating toxins in your body. It's good for your body and good for your brain. So what? It's not a big deal. It's a minute here and there out of your life. So hydration, drinking, always have a water bottle nearby. I have probably 10 water bottles. There's one in my car, there's one in my husband's car, there's one by my bed, there's one sitting over there on the table, there's this one beside me, there's one in my club bag. I drink water all the time. Now, some people say to me, I don't like to drink water because I really don't like the taste, and that might have to do with the area that you're in, or you just may not like the bland taste of water. There are all kinds of little bitty flavors that you can buy now at just any market or grocery store. tangerine and mango and papaya, and you put a drop or two in your water bottle and it tastes delicious. And it's not calories and it's not sugar. It's just going to give a little flavor to the water. So there's something you can do if you don't like the taste of water. The other thing is, this may come as a surprise, but many sources say that you should drink as many ounces of water a day as you weigh. Meaning if you weigh 120, you should drink 120 ounces of water. Now, even though I drink a lot, I don't always do that, but I do my best. I drink as much as I can. And you've also probably heard that if you are thirsty, you've waited too long to drink, that you're already dehydrating. So drink regularly. Don't think I'm thirsty or I'll wait until I'm thirsty. Drink regular. Another thing that your brain needs is sleep. And sleep means that many of you say, I'm not in control of that. I'm just a poor sleeper. I don't sleep well. Well, what's important about sleep is that your brain needs a routine. It needs to know it's time to start slowing down and shut down. So think about when you would like to go to bed. Everybody's a little different, although they say that the best sleep is between 10 at night and midnight. But you decide when is a good time for you, and 1 hour before that, start preparing your brain by giving it signals through rituals. Meaning, maybe what you do is say, okay, turn off all screens, and that's an important one. They stimulate you, they wake you up. So, no TV. Oh, really? No TV, no smartphones, no cell phones, no laptops, no screens. And your brain says, we're finished with that part of the day. And then you might say, I think I'll make myself a cup of herbal tea. And the brain says, we're making nighttime tea. We must be getting ready to go to sleep. Or maybe you sit down and you say, I'm going to write very quietly in my journal all the things that I'm thankful for today, or all the special memories of today, the person I interacted with, or the wonderful experience I had today at the grocery store, or whatever it is that was a highlight of your day. Or maybe you read, but don't read a thrilling mystery story. Read something inspirational or peaceful, or a book of poetry or meditations, or from a holy book. So that prepares your brain to be able to sleep. Now, another thing that the brain needs is oxygen. And we do not breathe well as a society, not just in a state or a country, but all over the world. Most of us breathe in, and then we don't necessarily breathe out. It just kind of disappears and it goes out on our words, or it kind of floats away. And then we breathe in again. We're not really truly exhaling. And if you've ever taken a breath class or a breath work class, they will tell you, ideally, your exhale is twice as long as your inhale. Getting rid of what's in your lungs, getting rid of any toxins, getting rid of, releasing, emptying the lungs so that when you do breathe in, all that fresh new oxygen comes in. And I'm going to show you a little tool that you can use for teaching yourself to exhale. Now, in addition to that, there are two other things that you need, and I talked a little bit about this in one episode where I talked about the physical body. And the other two things the brain needs, as well as the body, is movement, which we like to call exercise, but it doesn't have to be as challenging as exercise. Movement, planned, designated time in your day for movement, and fuel. The brain needs fuel. It needs food. It needs to be able to make glucose. It needs good quality, healthy fuel. And who's in charge of that? You are. Are you putting lots of leafy green vegetables in your diet? Are you eating berries? Are you eating less red meat and more seafood and maybe white poultry? So what are you choosing to fuel your body with? If your car was having a problem, I bet you wouldn't put the cheapest fuel you could put in it and maybe add a little water. That would cause a problem. You want to put the best fuel for your car in it, and that's what you want to do to your brain and your body. So movement, again, can be very simple, very easy. It doesn't have to be that you're pushing yourself, driving yourself. It can be a simple form of movement. So I'm going to show you two tools tonight that have to do with your brain especially. The first one is called body math. So get ready to laugh because you will get mixed up. Sit back, from the screen. Maybe take your shoes off. I always do this show barefoot because comfortable that way, and this is about being graceful and living a life of comfort and ease, and because it stimulates those 7,000 nerve endings in the bottom of my central nervous system. So we're going to clap and tap and count all at the same time, and there'll be a little lag probably in the screen that you're seeing, but it doesn't matter. Just do it with me. Don't watch me. That's not going to help you. Do it with me. So here we go with a little bit of body math. And we do it to music because that stimulates the brain as well. So I want you to tap your foot and tap your hand to the beat of the music, and then tap it on the other side. And we're going to count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Clap on 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Clap on 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Clap on 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 and 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Count backwards. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Now forwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Backwards. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Now clap on 3. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good job. Whew. And you might be a little out of breath. You certainly are probably laughing, and you probably got mixed up, which is a good thing. It meant that you're trying something new. Now, the next thing we're going to do is breathe out loud, and I'm just going to give you a few examples, but you can practice this on your own. Anytime you're doing something that's an exhale, making a sound, singing, humming, whistling, shouting, saying a tongue twister, counting, ABCs, you are exhaling because it takes the air to push out of your body to make that sound. So let's just do a few together. One might be as simple as I grew up on a farm in Tennessee, and us little country farmers, we'd go, yee-haw! So do it with me. Yee-haw! 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 Now, if you were doing this on your own, you might do that 10, 12, 15 times or more, because the more you do it, the more the abdominal wall squeezes and pushes that sound out for the exhale. Now, another one might be singing, humming, or whistling. So you could sing, or you could hum, or you could whistle, or all three, one right after another. The song, Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Let's do that just a little bit. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Now hum. So again, you could count, you could whistle, you could hum, you could sing, whatever you want to do as long as you're making noise and repeating it for a while. So those are two tools you can do at home. Breathe out loud to oxygenate the bloodstream, and body math to get your brain learning how to respond, react, and recover to something unexpected. So if you want to know more about the tools of the Ageless Grace program that stimulates the brain and body, visit our website, agelessgrace.com, agelessgrace.com. There are free things on there. There are handouts. There's free class. There are also other classes you can buy, DVDs, flashcard, a book, seminars, workshops, you name it. At that website and you might be surprised what's on there. Also in the Win-Win Women's store, there are products that you can find and use and work with at home to stimulate your brain and body. So thank you so much for being with me on Living a Graceful Life. And I remind you once again, the way I started, that it's never too late to begin making choices to live the life that you want to live. And then I always like to end with a what if. What if you were to incorporate just these two tools you saw tonight, body math and breathe out loud, and start to do them on your own 2 or 3 times a week and stimulate your brain. This may sound grandiose, but I believe it to be true. I think if all of us did that, we could change our world. Again, thank you so much for being with me. Blessings.